The closer we get to the end of the URC season, the tighter it gets for those playoff places. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Another exciting weekend of URC action lies ahead of us. It's so crazy the way the table is at the moment. We got like 2 points between Benetton in 5th place, between them and the Emirates Lions down in 11th place. Just crazy. 4 teams on 39 points and only one of them, Edinburgh, currently in the playoff places. So it's almost like whatever team blinks this weekend, they're going to lose ground, because if all those other teams, get results, then suddenly you've got a heap of teams ahead of you, and you've got to make up maybe 4 or 5 points on most of them to even just get back to the position where you were before. So it's really exciting, and even at the top there as well, just 1 point between Leinster and Glasgow. We're used to seeing Leinster having the first place tied up at this stage, but they're not getting it all their own way this year, and it just leads to so many exciting permutations from all the games this weekend as well. So we're going to get into the games, and we're going to, as usual, just talk about each of the matchups and what may or may not come out of it. So I'm going to start with the Friday game. So Friday, April 26th at 7:35, we have the Scarlets versus the Sharks. So this was at Parky Scarlets. The Scarlets in 14th versus the Sharks in 13th. So this is another little mini battle beside the whole thing, for playoff places and top of the pile and whatever. These two teams, only 2 points separate them on the log. So whoever wins this game, other than some weird bonus point action for the Sharks, pretty much is going to end up in 13th place at this stage at least, and have that momentum going into the end of the season to win that little mini battle that's going on towards the bottom of the table. Sharks have been they got themselves off the bottom of the table, and they've been pulling themselves further and further up. And I said that their task really for the end of the season should be to try and catch Cardiff, but to do that, they've got to beat the Scarlets, otherwise they get dragged back down into that fight with those bottom 4 teams together, trying to just win that little mini league instead. So in terms of form, Scarlets have won just 1 of the last 7, and they're on 2-game losing streak coming into this. The Sharks have won 2 of the last 7 and 2 of the last 3 as well. They lost last time out. Both teams losing last time out. Scarlets, they lost to, let me think about, who did they lose to? It'll come to me in a second. Edinburgh, right? And the Sharks, they lost to Glasgow. So both teams actually losing to Scottish opposition last time out. Sharks, a decent performance from them in that game. They had 2 wins. I think 2 wins were home, right? Now find it a little bit tougher on the road to get results, but this is a decent chance for them. But the Scarlets, in fairness, the scoreline in the end was a little, not quite a blowout, but was fairly comfortable for Edinburgh. In the end, it was 40 odd points to 18 in the end, I'm pretty sure. But the Scarlets scored some decent tries in that one, and they show again and again that if they get the chance to find a bit of space against a team, they really can exploit it. But they kind of struggle to really impose themselves on opposition teams and be able to create that space themselves. Like, a lot of it can be from turnover ball, etc. that they get that from. The Sharks have shown a lot of really good fundamentals throughout the season, and really, for mine, their performances don't deserve to be that far down the league, but they are where they are. And now, if they lose this one, you'd have to say on merit, then they will be in 14th place. No matter about the performances, it's about results, right? That's what a league is all about, right? You've got to get the best results to be higher up the table, and they haven't done that this year. But looking at this, given that the Sharks are finding that bit of form, and it was a decent performance although a losing performance against Glasgow. I'm going to pluck for the Sharks to win this one, but Scarlets are going to be right there with them. I think Scarlets are going to get a losing bonus point out of it. So, they're still going to be within touching distance of the Sharks. I think even after this game, that if the Sharks slip up and Scarlets find themselves a win, maybe they can still finish above them in the table. Also on Friday then we have Ulster versus Benetton. Also on 7:35 kickoff. This one is in Kingspan Stadium. It's 10th versus 5th. So, Ulster last time out somehow beat Cardiff, because Cardiff were easily the better of the two teams, I felt, in that game. But Ulster, they were able to come up with a win. There was a little bit of controversy about how that came about. Was it a knock-on? Was it deliberate knock-on, etc.? And Cardiff tried, chalked off. Ulster scored a penalty that ultimately wins the game as well off that. But I believe in stuff like that. It kind of evens out over the season. Every set of fans can, gripe about decisions and stuff like that, and point to decisions that maybe cost them, match points or win or whatever, bonus points or whatever it is, right? So for me, whether it's on the winning side or the losing side, generally, I'm not going to criticize decisions by officials as well. And also, a lot of it as well is, again, there's a lot of debate about whether it was a deliberate knock-on or not. Not that, it's not a case of, it clearly wasn't a deliberate knock-on, so therefore it shouldn't have been a penalty. So, I think it's just one of those. But we leave that bit there. So, two teams who kind of lost away a little bit. Benetton slipping from being right up there at the sharp end of the table, dropped down a bit and started to recover. Ulster kind of similar, right? Under Dan McFarland, definitely lost their way, especially in the Champions Cup. Found themselves outside of the playoff places, and now that they're trying to lift themselves back up, that you would have expected, I guess, every team that there was in that pack there, between like 7th down to 11th, probably felt that winning last weekend would have put them into the playoff places. But three teams, in 9th, 10th and 11th, all won last weekend, and none of them were able to climb up into the playoff places. So, Ulster were one of those teams. In terms of their recent form of these two teams, like both kind of similar. Ulster with 4 wins from the last 7. Benetton 4 wins from the last 7 as well. Ulster just on that 1 game winning streak, not really a streak, obviously. It'll be a streak if they win this game, but 1 win on the bounce at least against Cardiff. Benetton, though, with 2 wins, and that game against the Dragons, I thought they played really well there, and they got themselves a bonus point. We haven't seen many winning bonus points from Benetton, and it gave them a little bit of a cushion there. In 5th place, they got 2 points over the Stormers, and they probably weren't expecting to be actually overtaking the Stormers, last weekend either. But now there's a chance there for them now. Suddenly they've gone from, being outside the playoffs, trying to get back in or trying to push themselves up to the point where they almost guarantee, right, one of those top 8 spots, to now being just 4 points behind the Bulls, and maybe thinking, well, if we win this one, maybe now, we start chasing down the Bulls rather than looking down at that just massive pack of teams that are just 2 or 3 points behind them. But that's the way it is at the moment, and it's amazing. It's really exciting in the URC this year, and I hope that this season isn't just just a kind of flash in the pan, that we're going to see more of this year on year, just ultra competitive. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But in terms of the win here, it's hard to pick, honestly. I've seen the Ulster team. I think the backs that they picked are certainly stronger, certainly on paper, than the forwards that they picked. But given home advantage. They got the bounce of the win last week. Yes, the performance wasn't great, and Benetton are now more competitive away from home than we've seen them in previous seasons as well. I still think, on the balance of everything, Ulster are going to come out with a win on this one, but I do think that although Benetton haven't gotten that many winning bonus points, they have been picking up losing bonus points. So I think again, it's one of these ones where Ulster will win, but Benetton will probably get a losing bonus point out of it as well. Okay, so next then we go into the Saturday game. So early game, 1 o'clock kickoff, is Zebre versus Glasgow. So this is 16th versus 2nd. It's at the Stadio Sergio Lanfranchi. This one, you just look at it on paper and go, well, obviously Glasgow are going to win this, because it's like the team in second place looking to go top of the table versus the team who are rock bottom of the pile. But Zebre have been very, very competitive at home this season, and I don't see that changing against the Warriors either. Last time I took a bit of a drubbing from Connacht. Connacht finally, delivering a decent performance that was kind of when it was expected, right? A lot of times, especially think back to the Lions game where you thought, Lions go down to 14, they're definitely going to go on and win big. Got absolutely trashed. So decent for Connacht there, but Zebre, I talked about it before. Away from home, still they're a very different team where they don't have that confidence to go away and really put it up to teams and to be able to stick in games. But at home, they're able to do that. So Glasgow are not going to have it all their own way in this one. But I think the fact that they have that chance now to go top of the table, whether it's going to be, after this round or not. But if they win this game, until Leinster's game is over, at least they're going to be top of the table. And the fact, given who Leinster are playing and where they're playing it as well, they're more than likely going to be top of the table going into the next round as well. So a huge prize on the line for Glasgow. We've seen them, in the past, not really delivering on big occasions where they have the chance to, take a step forward in their development. I think this would be a big step forward as well. Having chased down the leaders, Leinster, and overtaking them, whether it's going to be for, a few hours, or it's going to be for a few rounds, or it's going to be until the end of the season, we don't know. But either way, it's going to be, a big statement from them as well if they can do it. But Zebre do stand in their way, from actually doing that. If we look at the form book again between the teams, so Zebre, they've lost the last 7, and certainly beyond that, like it's probably into double figures at this stage, because I can't remember just when they got that one win, and they did get a draw in there somewhere, but at least 7 on the bounce loss. Glasgow have won 6 of the last 7, so just one loss in those 7 games. And it's hard to see, even with Zebre being so competitive at home, it's hard to see this being another loss for them. I think Glasgow are going to win this one. Zebre certainly are going to give them a bit of a test, but I think this Glasgow team, we've seen them this year, that they seem to be made of kind of sterner stuff than the Glasgow team of last year, and therefore, I'm expecting them to come out of this, not just with a win, but with a bonus point win, and to really put it up, to Leinster there at the top of the table as well. So Glasgow win there. Zebre with a decent performance though. Okay, on to the next game then. So it is the Bulls versus Ospreys. This is a 2 o'clock kickoff. This is 4th versus 7th, and it's at Loftus Versfeld. So Bulls, their impregnable fortress, against European teams was breached last week by Munster, and they're not going to want that to happen again this week. So they're going to be all out for, restoring a bit of pride there and just starting up a new run of wins at home against European teams. Ospreys on a huge high, having beaten the Stormers last week, and well-deserved win for them as well. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. And again, another team kind of like Glasgow, where you can see that they've progressed from last season, and even through this season as well. I felt they've progressed through it as well, because at the start of the season they looked okay, but now there's a bit more steel about them. I think at the start of the season it felt like if things are going right for them, then they could come out with a win, but now they seem to be able to deal with adversity as well and come out the other side. But Loftus Versfeld is a tough place to go. There's a reason why it took so long for somebody to go down there from Europe and get that win in the URC. Munster did it last week, but can Ospreys do it this week? Let's have a look at the form book. So Bulls now, they've won 4 of the last 7, but are on a 2-game losing streak. Ospreys have won 5 of the last 7. That just speaks to how much their form has improved, and they're on a 2-game winning streak as well, and looking to do a double down in South Africa, and that would be absolutely amazing. I think if they can do that, then you have to start. Even though it's like people think, oh well, it's only the Ospreys, right? But honestly, I think if they can pull this off and get that double, they're going to start feeling like, you know what, lads, maybe this isn't just progress. Maybe this is going to be our year, because we saw what happened Munster last year, where they came like a train at the end of the season, to blow all the favourites out of the water and lift the trophy themselves. And Ospreys, if they pull this off on the back of that Stormers win, then they're looking like that team that they're coming up on the rails there to maybe cause a few shocks in the knockout stages as well, and maybe get to the final or win the thing themselves as well. So that's how much is riding on this game. But you have to think as well with the Bulls, right? So the Bulls, they've been in the knockout stages each year. They were beaten finalists 2 years ago. They got to, was it semi-final last year? I'm pretty sure it was, right? So they've got to be feeling too like, we need to progress, and to progress in this competition in terms of knockout stages, they need really, I think, to have a home quarter final, and because of what happened last week, they've got Benetton breathing down their neck, so they've got to produce a win here. They've got to restore pride, and I think because of that, we're going to see a big performance from the Bulls. We're going to see Ospreys again. They have that stickability, to stay in the game, but I think that the Bulls are just going to have that little bit too much for them in this game, and I think it's, this game could have been seen as, sort of just the after show, as it were, given that the Bulls Munster was such a big game. But because of that result now, this game becomes bigger again, and I think because of that as well, it's going to feel like kind of almost like a knockout game between these two. And I think it's going to be one of the more exciting games of the weekend. So it's one that I'm hoping, I'm actually going to be off work, so I might not be able to watch it live, but I'm going to try and avoid the result at least, and then rewatch the whole match in full and just enjoy it, because I think it is going to be a very enjoyable game to watch as a neutral. And I'm going to plug for a Bulls win, but I think another close game. It's feeling like there's going to be a lot of close games this weekend, honestly. So on to the next game then, that is Cardiff versus Edinburgh. This is a 3:05 kickoff on Saturday. It's at the Cardiff Arm Park. This is 12th versus 8th. So Cardiff, again, they're kind of in that no man's land in the table, right? They're down in 12th place. They are 14 points adrift of the Lions in 11th, but they're 7 points ahead of the Sharks in 13th. So there's not much really for them to play for in terms of their end of the season. But again, this is a decent young Cardiff side, and these are good games for them now. The last 4 rounds for the development of that side, build a bit of confidence and a bit of cohesion and continuity going in to next season. And then next season with that year under the belt, then this team really do have the chance then to do what Ospreys are doing this year and be competitive at the pointy end of the table. But can they do it in this game is the question, right? So they're against an Edinburgh team who last time out, a decent win from them against the Dragons, and feeling like maybe again the confidence is there for them. They're in 8th place in the table, so they know that they have to win because they've got that queue of 3 teams below them on the same points. So they know that even a losing bonus point in this game is probably not going to be enough to keep them in those playoff places. So I think they're going to be going all out for the win in this one. Cardiff last time out, they lost against Ulster, but were certainly the better team on the night. So they're going to feel a bit of grievance about that as a team. And again, they're going to want to get the result that they feel that their performances have deserved. And, again, it feels like, really nice matchup. And it's fallen, I think, this weekend that there's a lot of teams that feel at least that they're going to be close. Obviously, not all the games are going to be close. We're going to have some games that are going to be blowouts, but at least, on paper, most weeks you can look at fixtures and go, yeah, that team is going to hockey that team, and generally you'll be right? But for most of these games, honestly, they feel like they're very close. In terms of the form book, then Cardiff, they've only won 1 of the last 7, right? But the performances have been there the last couple of rounds to say that it feels like they have a win coming. There's a win in them. Edinburgh, they've won 4 of their last 7. Before winning last week against the Dragons, they were on a 2-game losing streak, so they're happy to break that. And they know they need now to go on a winning run if they're going to make those playoffs. So I feel like they're going to give it their all in this one. It feels like, honestly, like looking at the style of the 2 teams, right, you would think that this is potentially going to be like one of those ones where both teams are going to get bonus points, and it's going to be kind of tries galore, and we're going to have kind of a tight finish, right? But conversely, I think that what this is going to probably end up being is that the winning team is going to be like low 20s or somewhere in the teens against maybe like single digits to kind of mid-teens kind of thing, right? So maybe 1 or 2 scores in it, but not overall a high scoring game, but maybe some decent defending and some blown chances as well, maybe a little bit nerves on there. But I think that Cardiff with home advantage here, even though they are on that long losing streak, I think they've got one win of the last 7, and that was 7 games ago. So if they lose now, they'll have no wins in on the form book, as it were, for the last 7. But I think they will get a win in this one, and I think Edinburgh. I don't know why, but I think Edinburgh will maybe be the ones who rue missed chances in this, and maybe could have. It feels like they're going to make enough chances to win the game, but they're not going to be able to finish them for whatever reason. I don't know. Sometimes your brain just says this is what's going to happen, and it's complete bullshit. But that's what it is for me at the moment. So Cardiff win in that one. Okay, on to the next one. Then it is Edinburgh Lions versus Munster. This is a 4:00 kickoff. So this is probably going to be the first game of the weekend, of the Saturday games, because I'm going to watch one of the Friday games, probably the Ulster game, just because I'm Irish, right? But this is probably the first of the Saturday games that I'm going to have free time to be able to watch. And I think, again, it's going to be an exciting one because there's so many factors at play here. And sorry, there's a dog in our house that's crying or something. But we'll continue on anyway. I'm sure he's okay. Now, so it's the Lions in 11th versus Munster in 3rd. This is at Emirates Airlines Park, but again, it probably has a proper name, as it were, to the stadium. But yeah, this feels like a really, really big game because you have the Lions coming off the back of like spanking Leinster last week, and then Munster coming off getting that win at Loftus, against the Bulls. So both teams coming into this on a high. One of them is going to complete, a really special double. Either the Lions are going to do a double over, the two, at the moment at least, big Irish provinces in Leinster and Munster, or Munster are going to get a double in South Africa. So either way, whoever wins it, that's a huge accomplishment for them. So again, it feels like one of those games, because of what's on the line, that is going to be a ding-dong battle. And I think this might be another one where, we're going to see some decent scores, but maybe seeing it be a little bit tight. I don't see it going more than kind of 2 scores between the teams for most of the game at least. And then it's whoever has that kind of finish in them as well. So if we look at the form book, Lions, they've won 5 of the last 7. And that win against Leinster was kind of recovery because they lost the game before that, but still decent form from them. Munster also won 5 of the last 7, but crucially for them, they're on a 5-game winning streak. So, and that's catapulted them from basically, outside of the playoff places up to 3rd place in the league. So, but if they want to stay there, they know that they've got to win because there's teams, the Bulls are only 2 points behind, Benetton 6 points behind. So they know they've got to keep that winning streak going if they're going to stay in that top 3. And what they don't want to do is start falling back into the clutches, the likes of Benetton, the Stormers, Ospreys, etc. So with so much on the line in this one, this is honestly the hardest one. I've said all the others are going to be close. This one just feels like the closest of them so far. It feels like not even a score, and it feels like it's going to be like a 1 to 3 points difference. And we could get even a rare rugby draw out of this one, depending on how scores fall. That's just how close it feels. Just thinking about where these two teams are at the minute, but. If I've obviously got to pick a winner, I can't just sit on the fence. And because I'm Irish, I'm going to go for a Munster win in that one. Okay, on to the next one then. It is 6:05 kickoff. It's the Stormers versus Leinster. This is 6th versus 1st. It's at the DHL Stadium, but again, it probably has a better name than that. But I don't know what it is. I probably should look it up, but every time when I come to these, I just look and I read whatever's on there. It's kind of hard to get the. And something I want to do actually, just as an aside, is I've seen a lot of I've probably seen more of the Super Rugby teams, just calling them Super Rugby teams maybe tells you why. But of the South African teams, then a lot of maybe URC fans or European fans, because they used to watch a lot of Super Rugby when South Africa were in it. Obviously, there are other teams that aren't around anymore that were in Super Rugby from South Africa too. But, I have like a feel of that, but that was kind of from the kind of the mid-teens. That's when I watched a lot of Super Rugby, because that was when I moved to Japan first, and I loved my rugby, and it was on at the right time for me. So I saw a lot of actually South African teams playing in Australia and New Zealand, not necessarily in South Africa, and therefore not seeing them in their own stadiums and getting what the names were before. Every stadium had to be named after a sponsor, because you can't miss out on a little bit of extra cash, like selling out your history. And that's not a dig at South African teams before anybody says that. My national team play in the Aviva Stadium now, not Lansdowne Road. So it's not something that is, just in South Africa. Every team does it. It's just the fact that I'm used to, from Pro 14, Pro 12, Celtic League, etc., used to watching the Irish teams especially play, obviously in their own stadiums, and the stadia of the other teams in there as well. So therefore I know what those stadiums are called, even before they got stupid sponsors as well. But we're getting sidetracked, but I always get sidetracked, right? Let's get back to the game itself. So Stormers versus Leinster. Leinster got an absolute hiding by Lions last week. They're going to want to respond to that. But Stormers, they lost to Ospreys last week as well, so they need a response too. So it's kind of the opposite of the Lions and Munster thing, where both teams are cutting me in on a high after achieving something brilliant, and now being having the chance to achieve something absolutely amazing in that game. Whereas you got these two teams instead, Stormers and Leinster, coming in on this on the back of a bit of a chastening for both of them, right? And now they've got both looking to restore some pride and get something on the board. And Leinster, probably as a Leinster fan, certainly I can't speak for the Leinster team, but as a Leinster fan, I would have thought, okay, hopefully we win the Lions game and then we get a losing bonus point out of the Stormers, would have been my thinking, right, of our South African tour. Now we got nothing out of the Lions game, and a losing bonus point isn't going to be good enough for us anymore against the Stormers. So we got to go for the win. But the Stormers are a formidable team. Like they drew against Leinster in the RDS last year, albeit that they lost a big lead. But what was it, like 19 or something like that, 17? I think it was maybe 17-0 or something to the Stormers. Leinster came back and actually went ahead 22-17, I think, and then the Stormers came back themselves and got the draw. So a game like that again this year would be amazing. Just as entertainment to watch, because that was a really exciting and really kind of intriguing game to watch last year too. And if we look again at the form book for these teams, so we got the Stormers, who've won 5 of the last 7, lost last time out against Ospreys, as I said. Leinster, who have won 5 of their last 7 as well, which weirdly for Leinster is actually a poor kind of bit of the form, because if you take almost any other group of 7 games during the season, they've won either 6 or 7 of those games pretty much, right? Because they've only got 3 losses. The other loss that they had was against Glasgow in the opening round. So yeah, if you segment any other part of the season, they'll have either 6 or 7 wins out of 7 rather than just 5. And then just think after this one, possibly they're only going to have 4 wins out of 7, and psychologically that's not where you want to be, really coming towards the tail end of the season. We know there's focus on Champions Cup or wherever, but if you're in this competition and you're there near the top of the table, you're also targeting winning this, right? It's not a case of if we win. I don't believe that this whole thing of, well, if Leinster win the Champions Cup. Well, they won't care if they don't win the URC. I don't believe that at all. I think a team like Leinster or a team like the Stormers or whoever, or pretty much any team that has, even an inkling of a chance in a competition, they want to win it. And I think, yes, so for that, Leinster really, I think, need to find something in this one. But the problem is, in fairness, they sent a better team than they did last year, certainly, because last year they had a whole match day squad who were ring fenced off, and they were the Champions Cup team, right? All the Irish test players, etc., were in that squad, right? Then it had another squad who were the URC team, who were preparing for the knockout stages and ultimately lost to Munster, and they were ring fenced off as another squad. And then they had a third squad that they sent down to South Africa that included some in fairness, some decent players, but a lot of players who maybe we haven't seen in the Leinster shirt since, academy type players, and some players we haven't seen because of injury, but a lot of players we haven't seen simply because they're that far down the pecking order in Leinster that some of them maybe have moved on at this stage, or are still trying to work their way up through the Leinster system to get in to get into a position where they're a viable option for selection other than sending down on the South African tour. So, this season, there are some players like that in the squad, and we saw them playing last week against the Lions, but there's a lot of other really good players selected there too as well. It's not like it was just kids or guys who are about to retire that were sent down. It was a decent Leinster team, and they just didn't perform against the Lions, and now they've got to pick it up, and they've got to go against a Stormers team who are going to be coming with hellfire at them, and trying to kind of rip the heads off and get that win, and get their kickstart their run into to the end of the season as well. Stormers are there in 6th place on 40 points, and they know if they slip up again, suddenly they're potentially outside of the playoff places, and then having to maybe go on the road then and pick up wins to just secure a spot in the playoff places. They would have felt that once they kind of started turning the season around and went on those winning runs, that they were going to start moving up the table. They didn't expect that it was going to kind of halt and then they're going backwards again. So this is kind of a turning point for them as well. This feels like a must-win game for the Stormers, and because of that, it was just said logically, pick a winner of this game. I picked the Stormers because of that, because it feels like this is an absolute must-win game for the Stormers, whereas for Leinster, it's a game I feel like that if they lose, it's going to have a bad effect on them, but it's not going to be like a disaster for their end of the season, right? They can still kind of pick things back up and finish well and for the season. But for the Stormers, it does feel like a must win. So just picking on my head, I go for the Stormers. But as you know, I don't always pick using my head. I'm stupid sometimes. I go with my heart, and I'm a Leinster fan, so I'm going to go for a Leinster win. And if they lose, I'm not going to be saying, oh, well, I did pick the Stormers, really. No, I'm picking Leinster, and if they lose, they lose. At least if they win, I don't kind of have that little bit of shame of I didn't back my own team, right? So I'm going for a Leinster win in that one. Okay, on to next one then. Last actually game of the weekend, which is an 8 o'clock kickoff, and this is Dragons versus Connacht at Rodney Parade. This is 15th versus 9th, and these are two teams who kind of traditionally would have been kind of fairly close in the table, because Connacht have had their struggles, right, being down kind of towards the bottom of the table, kind of vying with the Dragons to keep off the bottom or the bottom two spots in the table as well. Connacht have developed a little bit from there, but this year they have been kind of close. I'd say this year's performance has been closer to those bad old days for Connacht than we've seen in a while from them. Dragons, they've kind of had like a very, I'm not going to say mixed season, because it's not really a mixed season. They've had like a few kind of nice green shoots, right? But very rare shoots. So that's why I don't feel it's mixed. Because a lot of their season, the performances for me haven't been up to the standard that we would like to see from them, right? And I know that they kind of have a lot of adversity in terms of their position in the pecking order. Like these two teams, actually, like Dragons, are kind of the bottom of the Welsh pile, and Connacht are the bottom of the Irish pile. And it doesn't mean that they don't have any good players. Both teams certainly do have good players, but generally, out of the four regions or provinces from their country, generally they've finished bottom of the pile. So they're kind of similar in that way. But the thing as well is that with Connacht is that they've been so inconsistent this year, right? They've had that now big win last week against Zebre, and now they're playing the team who are vying with Zebre to avoid that bottom position, right? Both on the same amount, I think 15 match points there at the bottom of the table, right? So you would think, even though it's away, you'd still think Connacht thumping win last week against a team who are very comparable to the Dragons in terms of their overall performance this year. Therefore, Connacht should still win fairly comfortably, right? But Connacht fans will tell you that ain't the way that Connacht do things. Connacht, must be so frustrating to be a fan of, to be a Galway person or wherever, like supporting this team. But I suppose with that comes the fact that even though those real high days are rare, they must feel so much sweeter as well when they do come. And looking at this one again, it's kind of hard to pick. It feels like this week, the margin between all of the teams in each of the games should be a score, and that's it. That's just how tight things feel. In terms of the form book, so Dragons, they've won 2 of their last 7. So at least they have kind of, although they did have that poor game against Benetton last time out, like they did, like in that game they weren't terrible, honestly, and we saw they did lose, but we saw some decent stuff from them. And I said terrible game. It was a loss. It wasn't a terrible game. I kind of misspoke there a little bit. It was it was another loss to add to a lot of losses that we've had this year. But the performance was actually a step up from what we've seen previously from them away from home. And then before that, then they did win that battle between Zebre, the game before that. So that was, one of those 2 wins that they have in there. And then Connacht have won 4 of the last 7. They were on a 2-game losing streak until that win against Zebre last time out as well. So, again, being one of those teams that are in that log jam that has just a few points between them, they know that they've got to keep the winning run going, because the teams that don't are the teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. So, and then again, because of that, I think Connacht are going to win this one. I think they're actually going to find a little bit of consistency in terms of they're going to put back-to-back wins together. I'm not going to say back-to-back performances, because this one might be a little bit scrappier than it was against Zebre, but I think they're going to do enough to get back-to-back wins. Okay, so that's the end of my predictions. Let me know how you think your team are going to go and how they're going to finish the season as well. And I'll see you guys on the next video.